The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to thank you for joining us today's webinar. And this webinar today has been brought to you by the ESA Young Security Professionals and sponsored by System Sensor. My name is Brandon Savage. I'm the volunteer chair of the Young Security Professionals group. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. All callers are currently being muted and will be for the duration of the webinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to use the question or chat log off to your right to submit those questions to us, and we'll include those in our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Additionally, a recording of the webinar and a copy of the PowerPoint presentation will be available in the YSP resource library on esaweb.org after the webinar is concluded. For those that are interested, continuing education credits are available for attending, so keep an eye out in the little chat log on the right for instructions on how to request your accreditation form. Okay, housekeeping notes aside, today's webinar, which is entitled Introduction to System-Connected Combination CO Smoke Detection and Low-Frequency Sounders, will be presented by Justin Meyer and Rebecca Peterson of System Sensor. To give you a little bit more information about their background, Justin Meyer is a product marketing manager in the System Sensor Security Business Unit. At System Sensor, Justin has developed and launched several carbon monoxide products, including the i4, and has been focused on educating the market on all things relating to CO, including the benefits of system-connected detection and proper detector placement. He has an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA with an emphasis on supply chain management. Turning to Rebecca Peterson, she is a product marketing manager for the System Sensor AV product line. She's recently launched System Sensor's low-frequency notification appliances and focuses on educating the market on the low-frequency requirements. She has 11 years of experience in the fire alarm industry, with 6 of those working with regulatory agencies such as UL, ULC, FM, and CSFM. She has an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering and an MBA with an emphasis on marketing. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our presenters today.
Great. Thank you very much, Brandon, for the warm introduction. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar. You know, as we get into it, we will be covering really what, about what System Sensor is, who we are, some of the value that we add in the market, and then I'll be going over the combination carbon monoxide and smoke detector products, really how the science and applications drive the development of these products out there, and the new i4 series product. And then I'll be turning it over to Rebecca after that to talk about our low-frequency sounders. Code is something that drives a lot of the products in this industry, and she's going to go over how the new codes have really driven the development of our low-frequency sounders, and then she'll also get into the details of that new product and answer any questions of that after that. So starting off with System Sensor, you know, we're a life safety devices company, and we have been in existence for quite a while, and have been providing all sorts of products to the industry, ranging from smoke and heat detection, both residential and commercial. Same goes for our carbon monoxide detectors. We recently got into combination smoke and carbon monoxide detection, and I've also been leading the industry in our audible visible notification, oftentimes in commercial spaces. Besides that, we do sell HVAC system monitoring products, as well as fire sprinkler monitoring products. For today's webinar, we're going to focus on products within the security channel. For us, that means system-connected, hardwired, and wireless products. In the products that we're talking about today for the combination CO and smoke is aimed at residential applications. There are commercial products available, but I think for this webinar today, we're going to focus on the residential piece. We do also sell AV equipment into the security channel as well. Rebecca is one of our product managers, as Brandon alluded to, for our AV line. And there's a vast array of products for those, ranging from indoor and outdoor strobes and speakers, emergency communications and mass notification products, something that, as we've all been reading the news, have been increasingly important to the general public. And then now we've been launching our low-frequency sounders as a result of the new code. So that really sums up, system sensor as a whole. Want to dive into smoke and carbon monoxide detection, really some of the foundations that go into the development of our products. And I think the best way to really understand where our devices come from in the development is to really start taking a look at the statistics out there that are in the industry. Being connected to a security panel, most oftentimes people are installing a security panel for protection against burglary first. Statistics are showing that it's 10 times more likely for a family to experience a fire within their home rather than a burglary. And so, we don't want fire detection products to be an afterthought when installing a security system. There are about 377,000 residential fires each year, which equates to about 1 every 87 seconds. So it's a very common problem for people out there. A startling statistic is the fact that under 50% of homes oftentimes are working without a smoke detector. And for something that is so dangerous and so easily remedied in terms of prevention and notification, that's something that is very alarming to us in the industry, and we want to overcome that in any way we can. For carbon monoxide, the CDC is reporting that there are about 68,000 unintentional yearly exposures to CO per year, and that equates to about 15,000 emergency room visits related to CO, all ranging from a variety of symptoms that we can cover a little bit later. Only about 30% of homes actually offer CO detection, and given the characteristics of carbon monoxide, that's an alarming statistic and one that we want to help overcome as well. But something that is driving this industry and the adoption of carbon monoxide detection within homes is the fact that now 38 states do have legislation mandating some sort of carbon monoxide detection within a home, whether that's a new home or existing homes or other apartment dwellings, things along those lines. We at System Sensor keep close tabs on that, and if you go to our web page, which will be listed later on the presentation, you can actually find a map, an interactive map that really breaks down where carbon monoxide legislation exists throughout the country. This chart here just shows the increasing level of carbon monoxide incidents going on every year within the United States. In the last 10 years, almost every single year, it's increased in terms of the number of incidents happening within a home, and it's something that is quite concerning for all of us in the industry, and it's something that we are trying to develop products that is going to actually reduce that number. So laying the foundation, a lot of people know what carbon monoxide is, but we always want to make sure that everybody is aware of the fact that it's a colorless and odorless gas, and what that means is that the human senses are unable to actually detect it. We can't see it, we can't smell it, we can't touch it, it's not tangible like smoke, and therefore when a CO event occurs, people are oftentimes either unaware of and believe that it could be a false alarm, or not sure what to do should it happen. It's a toxic gas that comes from the incomplete combustion of fossil fuels, coal, wood, things that we find in all sorts of parts of our home. And in fact, actually, the common sources of the home are often just cited directly as just furnaces, but really they can come from a wide variety of things. Things in your kitchen like gas ranges or ovens, even portable generators You know, when a hurricane knocks out the power in a region, oftentimes people are firing up a generator to really regain power within their home, and sometimes that's led to CO leaks, and it's unfortunately led to a few deaths within the United States. So simply by people understanding where CO comes from, we think that a lot of these incidences can be eliminated. The symptoms that happen from CO are very common to the flu, to other general illnesses. Anything from as simple as a headache and drowsiness, up into the extreme cases where it's lethal to the person who has succumbed to it. And the two factors that impact the symptoms of carbon monoxide is the amount of carbon monoxide a person is exposed to, so how much CO goes into their blood from inhaling it during an event, and also the amount of time that they're exposed to it. More time you're exposed to it is bad, and the more you're exposed to it is bad as well. So it is important for people when an alarm goes off to get out of the home as fast as possible and have the experts come in and find where that CO leak can be. A question that is constantly asked within the industry and regularly debated is carbon monoxide heavier than air? Many people assume that it's going to sink to the ground because the misconception is that it's heavier than air, when in fact that is not true. Scientifically, carbon monoxide is roughly the same weight as air, even a little bit lighter. But the scientific understanding has even caused NFPA 720 to specify exactly where the detectors can be installed. So people oftentimes think that it has to be near the ground in order to actually detect, but that's not true. They can be on the wall, and in fact, they can even be on the ceiling. You know, we definitely like to do our due diligence at System Sensor, and there's a number of studies out there. Just one of them I'd like to reference right here is from the Center of Hyperbaric Medicine, and their goal was to put some data around carbon monoxide incidents and to determine where a carbon monoxide alarm or detector should be placed within a home. The results of this study were the findings that carbon monoxide did not layer on the floor, nor did it even hang out in the middle of the room or rise to the top. In every single situation, carbon monoxide mixed evenly within that test chamber, and as a result, they determined that it's quite reasonable to put a detector within a residence at any height within a room. So there are a number of third-party studies out there, and we just want people to be clear that when buying, whether it's even something that isn't system sensor related, we want to make sure that people are putting that CO detector in their home first and foremost, and understand that it does not have to be down at the floor. Well, for us, we have some guidelines in place of where a CO and smoke detector should be. That's one on every floor, one within 10 feet of all sleeping areas, and in any room that contains a fuel burning appliance, as we listed earlier on in the presentation. If you are going to put it on the wall, we do recommend that it's at least 4 inches down from the ceiling, but you know, as I alluded to before, mounting one on the ceiling is also possible, and if you're going to do that, have it at least 12 inches away from the wall. If you have a vaulted ceiling, commonly found in, say, an A-frame home, you want to have it at least 3 feet from the peak. But as always, you know, we really want to have everybody who's installing something consult with both NFPA 72 and also their local AHJ for placement and spacing in their region. They always have some great guidelines. You know, we do have some don'ts when it comes to CO detector placement, and this is really intended to clarify that CO detectors should be put in a place where they're going to get the best possible chance for an accurate reading or not cause actually damage to the device. So do not put it within 10 feet of any cooking appliance due to heat or food coming off of that, by a sink, stove, or oven. Next to a door or window is bad because of the airflow. You know, you're not going to get an accurate reading on a CO device if it has airflow next to it, giving fresh air. Also, where airflow is obstructed is bad. stuffing one behind a couch where it does not have access to the ambient room air is bad as well. And then finally, any place that gets a lot of dust or debris, that's going to actually block the sensor from doing its job. When designing all devices, we have a limitation, as does any manufacturer, of the operational requirements for the device. For us, there's a fixed temperature range and also a fixed humidity range for our devices, and we want people to be aware of that. Detectors should not be put in places that are outside of those ranges of performance. An example of that would be an attic, where oftentimes in the summer things can get very hot and cause issues for the detector. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brandon for a poll question.
Fantastic. Okay, so give me just a moment here to pull up the poll questions. While I'm pulling those up, here we go. So, poll you should be seeing right now is: did this section of the webinar help clarify how carbon monoxide fills a room? So if everyone can take a moment, select one of the following, yes or no, and give us an idea if this was valuable to you and if it helped clarify something that to me has been fairly misunderstood. I've heard from a lot of people within the industry still aren't clear on how CO distributes throughout a room. Give you a few more minutes, a few more seconds I should say, and I'll punt back over to Justin. Justin, go ahead and take it over. What we're seeing right now, just as kind of the results from that instant poll, is 100% of you said yes. It was very clear. Good to know. Justin.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that that we were able to help out with that. Should you have any additional questions, as I said earlier on, our emails will be listed on a slide later on within the presentation, and feel free to send me any more questions on that. I'm going to cover our combination carbon monoxide and smoke detector in more detail, and what we have is known as the I4 series. And the I4 series for us consists of the detector itself, as well as a module that works within that. So really, for us, the I4 is more of a system than just one standalone device. And the easiest way to explain the I4 is to really break down the 4 I's within the I4 system. First and foremost is the integration piece. For the device portion of this, the detector, it means that we're able to integrate smoke and carbon dioxide into one device, what used to be having 2 devices on the wall or ceiling. So homeowners are oftentimes objecting to having a carbon monoxide system installed when not mandated by any law or code, and this is going to help people overcome that objection. It's more aesthetically pleasing to that. The module is able to integrate up to 12 devices on the panel. So it's not a one-for-one purchase, which is really great for those using the system. It's a device that sits next to the panel itself on a security system. So it is out of sight, typically, and you can add functionality to a combo detector, which otherwise wouldn't be there. This device, the module, is also compatible with our existing i3 series smoke detectors, being 2WTAB for a 2-wire and a 4WTAB for a 4-wire. It has a built-in sounder on the detector that is 85 decibels, and it sends distinct Temp 3 signals for a smoke event and distinct Temp 4 systems for a CO event. The intelligence piece of the detector is that it only uses 2 or 4 wires, which would oftentimes be a lot more when installing, say, a 6-wire or 4-wire CO detector plus another 4-wire smoke detector. It's photoelectric smoke detection, has smoothing algorithms, and has drift compensation as well, and has an electrochemical CO cell for accurately detecting carbon monoxide within an environment, thus reducing the nuisance alarms. It involves our customers the ability to instantly inspect the device to make sure that it's accurately working as predicted. The 3 features that exist on that are the Easy Walk feature, which is intended to help out with 2-wire systems, allow us to verify that the loops are correct. Many areas initially started asking for functional CO test, and it eventually became a code. And so we had incorporated our real test in there, in which you can spray actual carbon monoxide into the device, and we'll give you a reading to make sure that it's functionally working. And then finally, there's an LED that allows the use of a sensitivity reader to make sure that this detection piece is working as well. For visual indication on both devices, there are LEDs. There's green that signifies power and the fact that it's operational. There is a red LED. When installed is stating that there is a smoke alarm, and when the red LED is blinking, it signifies that there's a trouble condition. A blue blink also signifies that there's a trouble condition, and a blue solid state LED signals that there is a CO alarm going on. The purple, as I said, is for the sensitivity reader, and the yellow LED, which is on the module, is verifying the wiring within there. CO sensors have a fixed life to them, and oftentimes, historically, when the becomes to an end of life, the entire device needs to be replaced. Given the fact that a smoke detector is going to inherently last longer than the CO detector, we actually included a replaceable CO cell, so that after our 6 years end of life, the installers can be out in the field and actually go out and replace just that CO cell and keep the detector in place. There is an end-of-life timer on the device that sends an intermittent chirp when it is ready to be swapped out. And then finally, for the 4 eyes is the installation ease. So having 2 devices in one is able to reduce wire, and we've found that it does up to 75% for many jobs when looking at comparing it to 2 separate devices on a similar installation. So this is beneficial to both the installer and to the homeowner for a lower installation time and a lower installation cost. So when comparing our combo detector on the right compared to what has historically been a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector, you'll find that you are getting all of the same life safety protection of detecting smoke and CO, the appropriate sounder, and notice of end of life, you know, when having a life safety offering in there, and then it now adds that interconnection. And for us, interconnection, for those who aren't clear, is when one device goes off, they all go off. So if you have multiple detectors within a home, you have a CO event in the living room, but you have other detectors by the bedrooms. When the CO event in the living room goes off, it notifies the detectors in the bedrooms area as well that the appropriate action needs to be taken. So not only we want to cover the technical parts, but we want to just quickly talk about helping people sell smoke and CO detection. You know, there's definitely some objections that come up from time to time, and we just want to lay out some of the best practices that we found when rolling out this device. First and foremost is staying up to date on the codes that exist out there. You know, for example, California passed codes in 2010 mandating the installation of CO detectors in detached 1- and 2-story family dwellings, townhouses, things along those lines. So whether it's contacting local AHJ, going to systemsensor.com/CO, there are resources out there that can help you stay up to date and communicate to anybody that needs to know exactly what is mandated within that area. Also, just understanding the costs compared to a typical installation of a home for a combo system versus looking at the separate devices. For us, for example, we'll take something that looks like 6 smokes and 3 CO detectors and putting them into a home on one zone. Previously, before our I4 system came out, our customers were looking at 23 parts, and when you're looking at wiring and junction boxes and all that. But by moving to the I4 system, our customers were able to knock it down to 15 parts on a job. This was great in that many of our customers told us that they're seeing up to 27% savings in cost. So, there's definitely the life safety benefit. There's the aesthetics piece of homeowners wanting less devices on the ceiling, and then there's also the cost portion. So we think it's been a great addition to the industry, and people have been very receptive to it. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brandon for another poll question.
All right. So how many of you were aware of this new i4 series combo detector, hardwired combo detector, before this webinar? So select yes if you knew about this device, no if you did not. It's definitely combining 2 important life safety devices into one. Give you a few seconds to answer here. Looks like we're about half and half. So for those that heard about it, great. Love to hear any comments you have in the chat session to tell us about experiences you've had if you're already selling this. For those that weren't aware of this, great. I'm glad you had the opportunity to learn about it here today. Back over to you, Justin.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, there's more information for that on systemsensor.com/i4. Should you have any more questions, about the product. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our AV Product Marketing Manager, Rebecca Peterson.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Now, what I want to cover is a new low-frequency code requirement that goes into effect January 1st of 2014, which is just around the corner. And, oops, sorry about that. Just give me a second. So I want to give you a little bit of background information around this code, in essence the origin of the requirements, some of the impact changes that are occurring within NFPA 72, as well as prime applications that may need to comply with this requirement. And then lastly, I'm going to focus on our new low-frequency product line that we just launched June of this year. So as a fire alarm industry, we've definitely seen some advancements in terms of detecting fires and notifying occupants of an alarm state. As you can see from these statistics, home fire deaths have decreased by about 56%. Commercial fire deaths are down by over 80%, and hotel and motel fire deaths are down around 16%. This progress has definitely been made by the advancements in code and standards, as well as the advancements in technology. But that doesn't mean that there's still not challenges in terms of occupants escaping a building in a safe manner. 2 of the main factors are escape times have been decreasing, and that has to do a lot with the fact that buildings are just getting larger. If you think about the square footage of a home back in the 1970s and square foot of homes today, they are about double in size. The other thing is that a lot of the furnishing within these homes now contain a lot of synthetic materials that combust at different rates, which makes the detection of the particles a little bit difficult to detect. But one thing that's very interesting is the fact that a lot of the times the leading human reason for fire deaths is when we're asleep. They tend to occur within the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 in the morning, and a lot of times people do not respond immediately when that fire alarm goes off. And this is a critical issue, especially for individuals that are considered high-risk groups. And they define high-risk groups as young children under the age of 10. They account for about 13% of fire fatalities. The other thing is that there's also suspected that over 27% of civilian fatalities occur with occupants that are under some sort of alcohol or drug impairment. And as we know, alcohol acts as a sedative, so it takes a lot longer for those individuals to awaken when an alarm goes off. The other statistic is that there are over 34.5 million people within the U.S. that are classified as having some form of hearing loss. Now, most of us that are awake, and when a fire alarm goes off or your smoke detector goes off, we are going to respond and we are going to hear it. But the problem is that most horns in the industry, as well as smoke alarms in the industry, produce their tone around this higher frequency of between 2 kilohertz and 4 kilohertz. And there's studies that say that as we age, we tend to not respond as well to those higher frequencies. And this is a bigger issue, especially if we're sleeping. So based on this information, in 2006, NFPA funded 2 research studies that wanted to look at the effectiveness of that 3 kilohertz tone, especially on 2 of the high-risk groups that I mentioned earlier. So the 2 studies were run by Dr. Dorothy Broke from Victoria University, and she focused on individuals who are hard of hearing, as well as those that are under some sort of alcohol impairment. And the aim of the studies was to really define some performance requirements that could be built into the standards to create a requirement for these high-risk groups. Now, she used the same test criteria for all of the groups. She used lower frequencies of 400 hertz, 520 hertz. She looked at pure wave tones, square wave tones. She looked at bed shakers and pillow shakers, as well as strobe lights. And the conclusion from both of the studies was that a lower frequency, specifically the 520 hertz square wave signal, was the most effective at waking these 2 high-risk groups. I'm going to turn this over to Brandon for a poll question.
All right, quiz time. What edition of NFPA 72 are you presently using for design? So assuming you do fire systems in your company. If you are not, then you can abstain from responding. But those of you that are doing fire and know the answer to this question, tell us what edition of NFPA 72 you are using. I'll tell you, it's funny. I just moved into a new home, and we have fireplaces. An older home has 2 fireplaces, and so as things have been getting a bit colder here in the winter, we've been using our fireplace. And I've set off my smoke detector a couple times as we've been sleeping fires. The other day, I set it off pretty late at night. My kids were asleep, and all of the smoke detectors in the entire house went off, and my kids did not budge. They did not wake up. So I can definitely see how that's a concern. All right, our results are 40% of our audience that responded is using the 2002 version, 20% are using the 2007 version, and 40% are using the 2010 version, with no responders using 2013 as of yet. Back to you, Jessica.
Thank you. Now, I want to point out that prior to the 2010 edition of NFPA 72, there were no real requirements from an audible standpoint of what frequency that those devices needed to produce. The only real requirement was that they met the audibility requirements for sleeping spaces, which was 15 dB above ambient or 75 dB at the pillow. But based on the studies, the results of these studies, the 2010 edition committee members decided to incorporate a portion of this low frequency results into 3 chapters. And subsequently, the 2013 edition of NFPA 72 has followed suit with these same requirements. So let me go over them in greater detail. The first chapter is Chapter 18, which has to deal more with commercial applications. So that's more like college dorms and universities or large hotel chains. And Section 18.5.3 states that effective January 1st of 2014, if you are required to put an audible device in a sleeping space, then it has to produce a low-frequency signal that complies with the following. It has to be a square wave, and it has to be of a fundamental frequency of 520 hertz. Now, the compliance date, as you can see there, is just around the corner. And this chapter really followed the study as closely as possible. The next chapter is Chapter 24, which is a new chapter for NFPA 72 for Emergency Communication Systems. And there's this section, you can see there 24.4.1.4.1 that is in response to the voice messages in voice systems, that if you're going to put a voice system into a sleeping space, that pre-alert tone, so that initial tone before you play that voice message has to have a component of this low frequency square wave tone. Now, the 2013 edition of NFPA 72, they moved this section to 24.4.2, and they linked it back to section 18.4.5 to make it more clear that you have to, in essence, have that 520 hertz square wave tone. Now, the last chapter that was impacted is Chapter 29, which probably relates more to you guys. This is the chapter for single and multiple station and household fire alarm systems. Now, the section that was impacted is 29.3.8.1, which is the one that defines the requirements for occupants that have mild to severe hearing loss. And it states that if you're required by some sort of a law, code, or standard, or if you voluntarily want to provide a means for these type of occupants, then you have to designate either a room or rooms for these occupants, and those rooms have to have a low frequency sounder that complies with that 520 hertz square wave tone. Now, once again, the 2013 edition was also slightly modified, and the reason for a lot of these modifications was that when a lot of these requirements were written down, it was unclear that they were only intended for the sleeping spaces. So all of these revisions are really trying to clarify the fact that they are only intended for the sleeping spaces and not throughout the building. Now, these requirements were published in 2009 with the compliance date of January 1st of 2014. And the reason for that is they wanted to allow, for two reasons really. They wanted to allow national recognized testing labs such as UL, FM, or Intertech time to develop testing methods and requirements. And the other reason is they wanted to allow manufacturers time to actually produce products that would comply with these requirements. Now, two of the UL standards that were impacted, one of them is ANSI UL 464, which is the standard for audible signaling appliances. So that's what all horns and horn strobes, that sounder portion, are listed to. And the other one is ANSI UL 217, which is the standard for single and multiple station smoke alarms. So all of your residential smoke alarms, or even for some of those that fall under the slight, commercial applications, will fall under the standard. And what they added was different test requirements that are focusing on that 520 hertz tone, making sure that they meet the audibility as well as harmonics and the frequency response. Now, manufacturers that want their products listed to these requirements have to have a permanent marking on the housing that says they are a low-frequency alarm or sounder, depending on the product. Now, prime applications that are going to be impacted by this requirement: hotels and motels, so any transient lodging spaces. College and university dormitories are also key because they have a lot of sleeping spaces. Assisted living and nursing home facilities, depending on the type of facilities. There are certain cases where they have trained staff on hand where they don't necessarily need to provide a means in the sleeping spaces. There's also certain applications like apartments and condominiums where they may fall under that Chapter 29 requirement where you only need them in certain designated rooms. Now, I do want to point out that both the 2012 edition of the International Building Code and International Fire Code make references to the 2010 edition of NFPA 72. So if you live in a state or region that has adopted the 2012 edition of these codes, you may be required to comply January 1st. Now, the ICC has this nice little website link, and it'll be on the presentation so you can look at it later, that will direct you over to the right there that'll tell you which states are under what edition or jurisdictional adoption. Time for another poll question.
All right. So how many of you were aware of the new low frequency changes before this webinar? I know I would be a no. I was not familiar with this. Please take a moment right now and answer. Let us know if this is new and relevant information for you. For those that did know this, kudos to you for staying on top of code changes. All right, so looks like this is beneficial. We have almost 2/3 of the audience was not aware of these changes, with 1/3 of them being aware.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to educate the market today. And that, unfortunately, a lot of people are not aware of this requirement. So one of the reasons why we here at System Sensor are taking this opportunity. Oh, let me move forward. So I, in essence, extracted that information from that ICC website, and this is pretty much a map that kind of shows you which ones have whole state adoptions as well as some that have some local or county adoptions. And as you can see, it is pretty broad impact to the market. And there are some states that are extremely progressive. For instance, California is definitely going to be enforcing that January 1st. We also are aware of Phoenix. Ohio, actually, we've had a few customers who back in June were working on projects having asked to comply with this requirement. So please, take a look at this map, take a look at the ICC website, and if you are working on a project that is going to start next year, you may want to contact your local AHJ to see if you're going to have to comply with this requirement. Oh, another poll question.
Surprise! Okay, so do you think you will be required to meet the low frequency requirements in the next 0 to 6 months, 7 to 12, 13 to 18, 2 years or more? So kind of based on what you saw there, or kind of your information, do you have a feel? Now, the fact that 2/3 of us weren't even aware of this probably aren't going to have too much. All these numbers are going to be about the same in our minds, but we'll see kind of what your opinions are here. I imagine for a lot of people it will come down to, as you mentioned, specific instruction from the client saying it needs to meet this versus finding out about it from your local inspector who's inspecting the job. So we've got about, it looks like 1/4 believe 0 to 6 months, 1/4 7 to 12, and about half of us are thinking this is 2 years or more out.
Okay.
Good info.
Thank you. So just to kind of summarize the facts, so these are only required in the sleeping spaces. If you are working on a commercial project, so large hotel chains or university dormitories, they are required in every sleeping room. They are not required in the hallways or the ballrooms or anything like that. If you are talking about an apartment or a condominium, so you're following more Chapter 29, that one you only have to designate a room if you're required by code or law, or if you are willing to provide a means for someone who has mild to severe hearing loss. And only those designated rooms require a low-frequency device in them. If you are working on a retrofit project, the answer is it depends. The intent of the code was really for all new installations, but there are, of course, instances where an HJ may require that a building be brought up to the latest codes. So once again, that's a scenario where it might be best to consult with your local AHJ to see if you're going to have to comply with that requirement. Now, one thing that is a little bit vague is when it comes to voice evac systems. So I'm not talking about the ECS type systems, but more in some commercial applications, for example, hotels with high rises, they're required to use speakers in there instead of audible devices. It's a little unclear within NFPA 72 and UL what the requirements are, but what UL has stated is that for those types of situations, it's going to require system compatibility, meaning that the panel and the amplifier, the low frequency signal they want to drive through the speakers, all have to be tested and evaluated per the requirements that are defined in either UL 464 or UL 217 to state that they are as effective as a low frequency sounder. a little bit unclear. I think it's still being worked around in the industry how they're going to meet that requirement, but I do want to point that out. So I obviously given you a lot of background information, and I want to talk over our new line of low-frequency notification appliances. So when we were working on this product line, outside of meeting the code, one of the things that we needed to do to meet the requirement is actually to use a speaker element to make this product work. And we asked our customers what they wanted, and they said, you know, we really love to have it integrate into the fire alarm system just like a normal, you know, P2R or HR. So if you can have a 2-wire application, same physical footprint, same great features. So that is what we did. So we came out with this line in June, and the products are available in both red and white. They are of the wall mount configuration, so they are rectangular, but they are dual listed for both wall and ceiling mount installations. They have all of the great features of our SpectrAlert product line, so they have that plug-in design, they have a shorting spring feature for troubleshooting purposes, and they have a universal mounting plate, so you can install them to almost any type of junction box that's out in the market. Even though it does have a different tone, it is fully compatible with our system sensor synchronization protocol. So you can easily sync between a non-low frequency device and a low frequency device. And as far as we know, we are the first ones to meet the UL 464 requirements of the low frequency requirements. They are also FM and CSFM listed. Now, the low frequency sounder comes with 3 selectable tones, temporal 3, continuous, and you can also drive a coded tone from the panel. It is compatible with both regulated 12 and 24 volt DC and full wave rectified systems. The model numbers are HR-LF and HW-LF. The combo, we're adding our high candela strobe, so that's that 135 through 185 candela. And the reason behind it is that for sleeping spaces, the minimum light output for the wall is 110 candela, and for the ceiling it's 177 candela. This one comes with 2 field selectable tones, temporal 3 and continuous, and it is only compatible with regulated 24 volt DC and full wave rectified systems. The model numbers are P2RH-LF and P2WH-LF, and they are fully available through security distribution. So that kind of summarized my portion of the presentation. I obviously hopefully educated everyone on the new code, the impact in terms of applications, as well as gave you a little bit of a sampling of our low frequency product line. So I think we're going to open it up to some questions, Justin.
Yep. Yeah, Brandon, if you have any questions that have come in or anything that you'd like to ask, or whether it's the low frequency or the combination detector, we're happy to answer those.
So yeah, if you can go online, appreciate Justin, Rebecca, your presentations. If you have questions, go ahead and enter them on the right side of the screen. The first question, this is a real question, and it goes back to kind of the misconceptions that are in the market. I was going to ask this question anyways, but someone else already asked it for me. We had talked about this prior to the call. So the question is, when we're talking about carbon monoxide, is how is it detecting the carbon monoxide on the ceiling? Isn't it normally need to be around 5 feet off the ground? And I know you covered this during the presentation, but can you reiterate how these work even though they're up on the ceiling? Because it's a common misconception.
Yeah, absolutely. What oftentimes people perceive is that CO is either staying at pillow height or lower, or even that it's to detect at 5 feet. Maybe that's the thought of the theory of right around where people are standing. What has actually been found out from various studies, including the FPRF study that really talks about where a detector should sit within a room. They found out that due to the way that carbon monoxide is introduced into a system, system being a room with HVAC, so a fan or air conditioning or anything like that, they found that anytime a ventilation system is present, and operating, basically the flow results in a well-stirred air environment. So the CO is evenly potent up at the top of the room on the ceiling as it is at 5 feet. So the detector is able to be present at either location.
And if you don't believe Justin, and you think this is just go to the almighty Google and ask. I went ahead and entered it myself. Does carbon monoxide rise or fall? And you'll see the top 3 or 4 entries. I'll talk about CO is really the same way as air and will distribute equally throughout the air. So
Absolutely.
common misconception.
Yep.
All right. The second question, Justin, is also about the carbon monoxide product. You mentioned that the cells have a 6-year life. If a customer was to go out and purchase one of these and it was to sit on the shelf for several years, has the clock already started ticking on that 6-year expiration, or does that somehow get triggered once it's opened up the first time? And kind of a follow-up is that CO cell packaged somehow in storage? Is it a plastic bag or sealed foil? Or tell us more about that.
I'll answer the last part first. It's not packaged. The cell is not packaged in anything beyond what the detector is, and that would just be a typical box. So it does get introduced to that environment right away. The clock technically starts from production, and it is designed to last longer than 6 years, but there's that built-in leeway. We do build our products make to order, so we do not have an inventory that they sit in. The only distribution center is our actually distributors that we sell to. So our products are not sitting really on a shelf very long at all. And the benefit of that is there is that end-of-life timer, so that notification when it does become end-of-life is sent to the control panel, so both the monitoring station as well as the homeowner knows that action is to be taken.
Fantastic. Kind of in closing, I want to share a story. Recently I was visiting one of our partners, and it's a pretty significant monitoring station that covers nationwide. And this story speaks a little bit to carbon monoxides and their importance in life safety, and talks about, within this industry, we all are in this industry for a reason, and there really is a bit of a noble cause to it and the opportunity to really make a difference. And this individual at this monitoring station, we were kind of swapping the success stories, these fantastic stories of where what we've done has really made a difference. And he shared a story that had to do with Superstorm Sandy in the New York, New Jersey area. And as they, as a monitoring station, were gearing up for that, and their goal was to be able to take every single signal that came in and do their best to respond to them. And what had happened, there was a family that was out on Long Island that the power had been out. They had set up a generator out on their patio to provide light. It was a family, if I remember correctly, it was a family of 6. And unfortunately, that generator was expelling carbon monoxide gas that was going into the home. And this was in the middle of Superstorm Sandy. The monitoring station, to their credit, was able to receive the signals when they came in from the system. They were able to dispatch out to the local emergency response. And to their credit, they were able, amidst everything else that was going on in Superstorm Sandy, was able to respond to this alert and was able to save the family, who certainly would have died. They were unconscious when the emergency responders got there, were able to get them out of the home, and it made a big difference. So regardless of whether we're using a system sensor, there is a power in these life safety devices, whether it's smoke detectors, heat detectors, carbon monoxide, and hope each of you are looking for opportunities to be able to use these products in your business. I want to thank again our panelists today, Justin and Rebecca, for their informative content. I'd also like to remind everyone again that a recording of this webinar will be available in the YSP Resource Library at esaweb.org. Continuing education credits are available upon request. You've seen in the the notes section on the right. You can email Jacqueline Sean at ESA to get to the information to get credit. We'd also like to encourage you to keep the conversation going by joining the Young Security Professional group on LinkedIn and on Facebook if you have not already done so. And if you haven't already put it in your calendar, please put it in your calendar to attend the ESA Leadership Summit that's upcoming in 2014 to fuel your company's growth. The summit this year will be held January 19th to the 22nd in Orlando, Florida. So great weather in January. And it offers the opportunity to, 1, link up with other industry professionals, 2, to learn from experts outside of the security industry on ways to be better leaders, and 3rd, to lead your company with actionable takeaways. We've seen a lot of success from the last ESX in Nashville this summer of some great speakers that aren't kind of the same old within the industry speakers, but some that are outside of the industry that have brought some fresh light to some important topics. And we're trying to continue that type of approach with this Leadership Summit in January. You can go to esaweb.org to find out more information. I encourage you to register today. Sorry, that's at www.esa-summit.com is the specific website for the Leadership Summit. So www.esa-summit.com for more information. Once again, thank you to everyone for participating in today's webinar, which has been sponsored by System Sensor. We appreciate your time and our sponsors' time and our presenters' time, and hope you found the content useful. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.